Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for Monday, May the 5th, 2025 at 3 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, all commissioners are present. I'd like to ask you to silence your mobile devices. If you've got things that's going to make a racket today, please take care of those right now. Remind all speakers, if you come to the podium this afternoon, please press the button on the right. Be sure the red light comes on so we can hear you well and get a good YouTube recording. Gentlemen, this brings us to item number 2, approval of agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended with the addition of the tax collection report and tax release refund report as consent items number 11 and 12.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended with the addition of the tax collection report and the tax release refund report as consent items number 11 and 12.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Barry. Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. It's 5-0. This brings us to item number 3, presentations. Today we have 3 items for presentation. The first one comes from our America 250 committee. This will be an update. This will be presented today by Mr. Ed Phillips. Mr. Ed, good to see you.
Thank you. How's everyone tonight, this afternoon? So appreciate the time to be here tonight and talk about America 250. So if you don't know, if you haven't heard, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and running the British off our soil is upon us. There's a lot of planning going on. The America 250 Burke County Committee was formed last April, a year ago. I was selected to be the chair for that, and it's a privilege to be that and work with all our historians and Rev War buffs in Burke County. And Burke County has a huge history in the Revolutionary War timeframe. So we have a committee of 15, and we have met several times and established a regular meeting calendar. And so we're meeting the second Monday of every month at the Burke Visitor Center in our conference room. Anyone's welcome to attend. It's a public meeting, and come and hear what we're planning and add input to what we're planning. So the committee applied for and has received 2 grants from the Department of North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources. We first got $10,000 for a project, and if you've seen the banners up around the square in Morganton, downtown around the courthouse square, they say America 250 NC Burke County, and then we have them set, they're going up in Valdez. They've already been put up in downtown Valdez on Main Street. The college, Western Piedmont's going to put them up, and every school, public school in Burke County has received 2 of these flags to go up on poles of their choice at the school. And we still have a few more to distribute, but that's getting it started. We also have a Facebook page that are generating interest, and people are seeing the flags and commenting, what are those about? And that's exactly what we wanted. What are those about? And so we're telling the story. We also received a second grant of $30,000 from the Department of Cultural Resources. This is for a specific event. The Revolutionary War weekend in September every year has been going on here for over 20 years. And this year will be no different, except it's going to be bigger and better. And so think of it as you used to go to the carnival. Well, this year it's going to be the circus. It's going to be big. It's going to be at McDowell House out there the end of September. We're going to have reenactors, encampment of period campers, canvas tents and sleeping on straw and that kind of stuff. Also, all Burke County 4th graders are going to be invited to a field trip that week to learn about the American Revolution. And we're also going to do a very unique public tour by tickets on Friday, the 26th of September, to some very unique historic sites in Burke County that are not normally open to the public. And so this will be a one-off event for that, for people to see those. So there will be other events coming up that I'll report on periodically, but so far that's what we got going on.
All right, thank you, Ed. Any questions for Ed on this side?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Ed, let me ask you something. Do you guys have like a merchandise store or something there at the visitor center for this kind of stuff, or really kind of gear up for it and start wearing T-shirts, that kind of thing?
We are looking at that, but rather than sell it in the visitor center, we want to be able to tell people where to go to a store, a marketplace in any community here, and let them sell it and make money off of it.
I got you.
So, but we're looking at those kind of things. We have some pins, which I'll present to you guys at the regular meeting the end of this month that just came out. And then there's a few other things that they sent us from the state. But we have to get permission for them to use their logo on anything. So if we want to do something, we'd have to do that way.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
we're getting there.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Ed. Without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 2 comes from Burke County Chamber of Commerce, recognition of winners from the Chamber's Spring Litter Sweep. This will be presented this afternoon by Tanya Stevenson, President of Burke County Chamber of Commerce. Afternoon, Tanya.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you all are doing well. I would like to start out by saying thank you for adopting a resolution that declared April 2nd through the 9th as our Litter Sweep Week for the Burke County Chamber of Commerce. As always, we picked up a lot of trash. Unfortunately, it's still needed, even though I know the county's done a great job of trying to get ahead of it. There's still a lot of trash out there on our streets, and we were trying to play a little part in getting that up. I want to say a big thank you to our presenting investor, Republic Services, who helps us a great deal in that project, as well as Burke County, all the convenience site workers. We couldn't do it without your support, so we really appreciate you guys allowing those gentlemen to mark up our sheets and help us to find winners for our litter sweep. This year, during that week, we had 155 people participate in the litter sweep. We had 16 teams, 445 bags of trash was collected, 21 bags of recycling, and then various large items were picked up, over 32 tires, a shopping cart, a recliner, a chair, a bed frame, a battery, and various car parts. So it's just interesting, some of the things that you see, and some of the stories I've heard about what they saw out there too. I will not share here, but we are grateful for the county and your support in letting us recognize our winners. They will join us at your regular meeting. But to let you know, our recycling champions for this litter sweep, because we do keep recycling and trash separated, are the Comma Drama volunteers led by Jamie Money. So we are very thankful for them. We are thankful to Foothills Conservancy of North Carolina. They came in 3rd place with 52 bags of trash. In 2nd place was Gary Jennings. He picks up for the Vietnam Veterans of America. He picked up 127 bags of trash, 3 bags of recycling, a shopping cart, a recliner, a bed frame, 8 tires, 1 battery, and 1 wingtip chair. Let me add, Gary is a one-man team. I just am always very amazed at what he does, and he picks up trash really throughout the entire year. And in 1st place this year, we have a new winner, was the Burke River Trail Litter Getters, which I thought was probably the most creative name we had. Of course, led by Beth Hiley. You're all very familiar with her and all of her working throughout the community, and they picked up 139 bags of trash and numerous large items, including 7 tires, cinder blocks, and more. So thank you for participating with us and helping us with our litter sweep each year. And I appreciate you letting us bring in our winners to your regular meeting and let us give them some accolades.
All right, thank you,
Any
Tanya. We
questions?
look forward to celebrating with those folks at our regular meeting. Any questions for Tanya today? Hearing none, this item will remain on the agenda. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.
Item number 3, Longview Lions Club proclamation celebrating Lions Club. This will be presented by Alice Faye Pugh and Terry Hall. Afternoon.
Afternoon, everyone. I am here to request the approval for a proclamation in honor of the Longview Lions Club's 75th anniversary. Our club has been serving the Longview and surrounding communities since 1950, and we are incredibly proud to celebrate the significant milestone. For 75 years, the Longview Lions Club has dedicated to various charitable causes, including vision and hearing programs, supporting local charities, and being instrumental in building and fundraising the Longview Recreation Center. We have consistently strived to make a positive impact on the lives of our neighbors and contribute to the betterment of our community. Notably, the Unifor Children's Site and Senior Site Family Site program was made possible by the Lions Club and individuals throughout the Unifor, Western North Carolina, which is Catawba, Alexander, Burke, and Caldwell counties, and many sponsors from the community businesses and service organizations. These financial contributions enabled us to purchase a new vision van and necessary equipment to provide free vision screenings for children in this area. The program, which kicked off third quarter of 2022, is consistent with the goals and objectives of North Carolina Lions, Inc., Kids Sight USA program. Our service and goals and objectives for the North Carolina Lions, Inc., Children's Sight USA. Our service projects are not limited, but we do street cleanup, which her stories is perfect because that's what we see all the time. Packing food for the Corner Table Backpack program, collecting plastic for Next Treks plastic bag and film. Picked up 6,000 pounds of plastic and earned 6 benches, which we've placed all over in the community. And we believe that a proclamation recognizing our 75th anniversary would not only honor the hard work and dedication of our members, but also highlight the importance of community service and volunteerism in our area. We would be honored if you would consider issuing a proclamation to commemorate our special occasion for Longview Lions' 75th anniversary. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions on this item, gentlemen? All right, seeing here now, we look forward to your presentation and proclamation at our regular meeting. Thank you for being here today. Item number 4 comes scheduled public hearings. We have 2 items to consider today. First one comes from Community Development Zoning Map ZMA 2025-03. In public hearing, this will be presented by Alan Glines, our planning director. Afternoon, Alan.
Commissioners, thank you. We have a zoning map amendment 2025-03. It's a request by Brian and Robin Smith to rezone the front portion of their property, which they have about 30 acres, 23 acre total parcel, but they'd like to rezone the front part, which is up along US 64 from residential 3 to rural mixed use. I think we can scroll down. Yeah. Mr. Smith is a local builder, and this is a graphic image of of his large tract there. And there's quite a lot of businesses along US 64, and this is kind of a common characteristic of our kind of rural highways, is that they're mixed with single-family homes and businesses of all types. So this is kind of the character that we have in Burke County. Scrolling down just a little more, this is a current zoning map. It's different land uses going on in that area. There are some areas in red, which are kind of commercial uses here and commercial uses here, and he's located right across the street. I think they're trying to adjust that map for us here. He's right in this area here. So, like I said, the site that he would like to request changing to is the 4.5 acres that are on the front side at US 64 there. It's in the Morganton Township. It's Salem Fire District. Mr. Smith is a custom home builder with over 30 years of experience here in Burke County. He constructed an outbuilding on that property in 2022 with the Board of Adjustment. Over that time, he's sort of purposing that structure for support for his home building use. So it's got an office in there and some other things. But what he's noticed is that at times he's had to repair his own equipment, of different nature that he uses in construction. And so he has no place to take that or do it, yet he does it at his own property. He's had people approach him for the same thing. Could you fix this, front end loader, that kind of stuff. So he hopes to do that and be able to use that property for these mixed purposes. Long-term, he might want to put housing in that very same spot. We looked at this, we compare requests like this to the, with our future land use map, and of course, that future land use map calls for sort of a housing infill type of future land use there. But we note that rural mixed use is nearby, and it provides that additional flexibility that he'd like to have there. We took this to the planning board, and they recommended approval. It was, I believe it was unanimous vote, unanimous support, 6-0 at that meeting. One neighbor came to the meeting, and she also spoke in favor of it. So wanted to bring that to your attention. That's what he's requesting as a public hearing next meeting.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any questions for Alan on this item? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on the agenda. This brings us to item number 2 under scheduled public hearings, also coming from Community Development, Zoning Text Amendment ZTA 2025-01 and public hearing, also presented today by Mr. Glines.
Thank you again, Commissioners, members of the public. I guess when we think about adjusting our text for a document like a zoning document, it's a public document. It's something that is adopted and local here in Burke County. It's meant to serve the needs of this community, and there are times that it needs to be adjusted and changed to changing conditions. And so what we're bringing forward to you and suggesting the start of with this first amendment would be making some adjustments to our ordinance to help make it easier to use, to clean up extraneous graphics, and to provide some relief from the housing situation. So one of the things that our zoning code covers is lot size minimums. And so that's one of the things that we have in our ordinance that builders use, developers use to try to understand the yield on a piece of land when they come in to develop. So it's how large the lots have to be, what is your minimum lot size? And we've had a variety of lot sizes in the past, and some of it reflected utilities available for the property. Now, some areas of Burke County, they have to build a well and do septic. So you need to have a certain amount of land just to cover that. You have no utilities in the area besides electric, and so you have to provide your own water and your own septic. And then we have the scenario, occasionally in a lot of places, we have public water. So we want to reflect that in our lot size table and sort of understand what that would be about. It should give you a savings. You don't have to worry about separating a well from the septic. They can be kind of, you don't have that consideration, so you can have a smaller lot size. If you have public sewer, though, we're really moving into something where that's a real benefit to your property. It's kind of a rare commodity here in Burke County. Most of our sewer is over in the east part of the county, and we'd like to support that. If you have sewer access to your property, we ought to be recognizing that with smaller lot sizes, because you're not having to manage for water, a water well, or a septic tank. It should be a savings. So we're recommending some changes to that. There's an important table there. Some other things, we can scroll down a little bit. We have a section called, it's the standards for special use permits, and those items, a number of them, they go to the Board of Adjustment for approval. And these can be things like campgrounds or special event grounds, mobile home parks and stuff. So there's some repetition in that ordinance, and there was in each one of those uses, there was a separate list of site plan requirements that you'd put on a site plan on every one of those. But actually, it was a repeat for something we already had in the ordinance. In Article 7, it was just separated by several chapters. So this amendment would take all those separate references out for a site plan table and sort of recognize where it's found, which is 7-10 in our ordinance. Kind of clean up and make the ordinance simpler to use and easier to find the information you need. And then in Article 6 was site and development standards. And what we've tried to do with this is it's an important section of our ordinance, and it sort of encapsulates the parking, landscaping, and other things, access and utilities. And those were kind of jumbled together in a section 6.1, which was commercial buildings. So we're trying to give each one of those items its importance by breaking those out and having those as standalone items that cover commercial development across Burke County in an easy-to-find format. And we're going to rename that section to Site and Building Development and Design Standards. So that will take that out of there, keep the building design standards, which are simple but helpful, and then allow for a new section for each one of those topics. We'd have access and parking standards. We'll have landscaping ordinance standards. We'll have site utility standards. And then we want to develop some clarity on cluster development and master plan sort of developments. And we're going to build on that in future adjustments. Going forward from this amendment, this doesn't cover everything we want to do. This is sort of like a first phase. We'd like to work on subdivision, consider any other special uses that we need to have particular attention to, such as, we don't cover it today, but such as solar farms. For example, what happens to the solar farm when that equipment sort of terminates or is at the end of its useful life? Who cleans that up? How do we get that property back into other uses in the future? What do we do next? Stuff like that. We want to make sure we have covered those topics. And what we hope to do is put together a group of interested Burke County folks, which would include some planning board members, surveyors, home builders, and developers among citizens of our towns and communities to kind of give some input and feedback on these changes. Anything I can help you with if it's not clear here in this draft text amendment?
All right, thank you, Alan. Gentlemen, any questions for Alan on this text amendment?
I have some not direct but related questions. Have you been following House Bill 765?
I haven't followed it probably as close as I need to, but
Okay, I was just wondering what the implications of that with this presentation would be. I mean, I feel like I know. I just wanted to.
I think a lot of our regulations are not so specific where we're going to run into state rules, or some kind of a state change in ordinances. Ours are very, crafted closely. We're not managing the look of buildings or some of those things. I think we're keeping ours a little bit simpler in our code. I hope that helps with any kind of House bill changes.
Okay, do me a favor if you would look at that.
Okay.
House Bill 765, because it's my impression that it would basically take all county and municipal authority away as it relates to zoning and land use and develop state standards as far as density and those kind of things are concerned. I'm having a lot of heartburn every time I read it, and it seems to be advancing.
Okay. I'll be glad to do that. Thank you.
No questions?
Maybe if I push the right button there. Alan, I just wanted to say thank you and your staff and the planning board as well. I spent some time with this and too many notes here to really say out loud, other than I look forward to being able to support this. That was one of my laser focused things I wanted to do as a commissioner, was work on our zoning and make it easier, less government regulations, and make it easier for our builders and our citizens, and hopefully alleviate some of the housing crisis. So thank you guys so much and gals for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on the agenda. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Okay, this brings us to item 5, our consent agenda today. First item on consent agenda comes from Burke County Public Schools, presentation of finance data for the period ending March 31, 2025. And we'll hear from Keith Lawson, Finance Director for the schools. Afternoon, Keith.
Good evening, gentlemen and lady. Excuse me if my mind is a bit numb this afternoon. I'm fresh out of our day one of our Board of Education retreat. And I think, as you all well know, our retreats aren't exactly what people envision or comes to mind when they hear the word retreat. But I appreciate the opportunity this afternoon to present to you our third quarter revenue projections or results and current year projections. As you can see, and as you're well familiar with, the first two columns, previous and current, are our annual revenues by source. As you can see, state, federal, local, takes us all the way through receivables, and then the special revenues. Then, for comparison purposes, our March year-to-date are our actual results compared to the previous year. As you can see in state funds, which are our primary funding source, we're running 5.2% ahead of projected revenues, which in this particular category also represents expenses. So we are running slightly ahead. That is primarily a result of the fact that now that we have lived and are basically recovered from COVID, we're running at full employment. We had been experiencing about 3%, and we're running at less than 1% of a vacancy. Our next area would be federal funds. We're significantly down 42%, as you can see, and of course, again, that's as a result of COVID. All the ESSER money or COVID money has been expended, and that's behind us now, so we're back to historical levels of federal funds. The next line items, local, charter schools, fines and forfeitures, are all provided by you, the county commissioners, and of course, you all are living up to funding as promised, so we're on track as far as those sources go. Next, our receivables. That's just a function of where we front fund the schools for various purchases, and that's just what's outstanding that they owe us back currently. Next, our special revenue funds category. We're running ahead of previous years, and what that consists of is state, local, and federal grants that aren't administered or managed through the Department of Public Instruction to us. We're running ahead there because we are the recipient of a new Gear Up grant, which is managed by Appalachian State University, which exposes our middle school and high school students to higher ed opportunities and experiences to hopefully encourage them beyond their K-12 education with us. The second category is simply our local spending, which again is the revenues that you all very graciously provide us, and we appreciate that very much, by funding source, regular instructional support, etc. The one thing out of all this I will say is that the revenues over and under category were running slightly ahead of last year, so our fund balance usage, which we had originally budgeted to be $488,000, is going to be that, or maybe even slightly greater than that. So we're going to be taking some funds out of the savings account this year in order to close out this fiscal year. I know that was very quick and very high level, but I'm certainly more than happy to entertain any questions you may have. If I don't know the answer, I'll get you one.
All right, thank you, Keith. Any questions for Keith on his report? All right, seeing here and none, this item will remain on consent agenda. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Item number 2 comes from the clerk. We appreciate Kat's standing in or sitting in today for Kay as we are here. So this will come as reappointment to the Adult Care and Nursing Home CAC. Kat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The term for Donna Abuchon has expired, and she is interested in serving another term, and the terms are for 3 years.
All right, any question on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 3, also from the clerk, reappointments to the East Burke Senior Center Advisory Board. Kat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request is for 2 reappointments, the first being Larry Abernethy, who has served almost a decade on the Senior Center Advisory Board. And the second is for Rebecca Bova, our Eastburg Senior Site Center Manager.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Any questions on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 4 comes from the clerk also, resolution amending plat review officers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We received 2 requests, the first being from the City of Morganton, who requested the appointment of Shelley Stevens and the removal of Mark Hall as the plat review officer. And the Town of Longview has requested the appointment of Susan Matheson to replace Charles Mullis as their plat review officer.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Any question on this item? Seeing here none, item number 4 will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 5 comes from our county manager, a resolution extending Burke County Recovery Court opioid settlement funds. This will be presented by Hugh Sando, our budget strategy and performance analyst. Good afternoon, Hugh.
Good afternoon, thank you. I've got a few slides for you. I hope that's okay. Talking through today an extension of Burke County Recovery Court, and I have a few members in the audience that are going to join me here shortly. I just want to run you through this briefly. I just want to talk briefly about kind of the background of Recovery Court here in Burke County, some recent operational considerations that you all have directed staff to make, go through some performance data, and then talk about some of the next steps with the Recovery Court program. On a bit of a side note, I would like to mention that the county has, as you're aware, been recruiting for the opioid coordinator position, which has now been filled by Dr. Katie Ronado-Samuels. She'll be starting on June 2nd, I believe. After that point in time, we're working through the bylaws and the convening of that task force that you all established that will be continuing to evaluate all of the programs and things that we should be utilizing opioid settlement dollars for, not just Recovery Court, which currently is the main kind of program that's being funded. So Burke County Recovery Court, we've had one at least since 2004. We currently partner with a vendor that's based out of Hickory called Cognitive Connections. They've been around even prior to that. They held court sessions from 2004 to 12, and then that program was restarted around 2019 when there was a BJA, which is the Bureau of Justice Assistance grant, was awarded for Burke County for a period of 4 years. And that grant was extended an additional year after that due to the COVID pandemic. Cognitive Connections doesn't just serve Burke County, they also serve Alexander and Catawba County in a variety of recovery court functions. Catawba actually has a few different recovery court options depending on the demographic. So they have a Veterans Recovery Court and a few other Family and Children Recovery Court as well. It's very common historically for the Bureau of Justice Assistance to fund recovery courts across the nation. It's one of the most common funding sources for that program. And I would remind you all that initially that program was, the program we have here was funded through that grant, which was extended. However, after that 1-year extension, the renewal of that grant application was not approved. It was denied due to lack of data and program outcomes indicating the success of Recovery Court here in Burke County. At that point in time, you all as commissioners made the decision to allocate opioid settlement dollars to continue funding that program because it had a large number of participants who were receiving services on a weekly or monthly basis and going through that Recovery Court. And we didn't want to just leave them kind of out in the cold, if you will. And so you all directed opioid settlement dollars to continue that program and directed county staff to get a little bit more involved in the manager's office in tracking the data and the program and the outcomes of that program. So since last October, you extended those opioid dollars, and now today we're talking through a potential of extending that further, utilizing opioid dollars. I will say tracking the information from the vendor. Cognitive Connections has been very successful. We're getting monthly reports with the number of participants and all of the services that they're receiving and progress that they're making and the graduation status and things of that nature. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a moment. But we are hopeful and confident that in the future, we'll continue to try to identify other outside funding sources to continue this program now that we're capturing and measuring the data as needed. Just a quick snapshot of some performance metrics as of April. There were 19 active participants, which did grow by 5 since October when you extended funding for the program. Since 2022, we've had 16 graduates, and the 12-month success rate over the last year has been 57%. I will point out the national average for graduation is much lower than 57%, so we're very excited about that number. And I'll also point out, and you'll hear later today from a graduate, that even just one more person who has a successful outcome is a victory. I'd also like to point out, as I was talking through some of these metrics with the data coordinator with Cognitive Connections, she mentioned that most program graduates or program participants, when they come into the program, they have between 10 and 20% of them have stable housing and stable employment. And as you can see, post-graduation, 94% of them have stable housing and stable employment, which is really a huge testament to the success of the program. Extending funding for this program will allow it to have up to 30 participants with the flat level of funding that we have allocated now. And it would extend funding through December of 2026. During that time, staff will continue to monitor and identify potential alternate funding sources for the program. I do have a few people here that are going to just speak briefly. First, I want to welcome up Mr. Chris Upstott, who's a recent graduate of the program, just to say a few words.
Thank you guys for having me tonight. Just to give you a little brief background of me, I'm 32 years old. I spent about 20 years of my life in active addiction. I moved to Morganton when I was 13 years old. And I've caused a lot of damage in this community. But through this program, I was able to recover. Without this program, I wouldn't be standing here today. I'd be in prison or in jail or dead. Without the program, it saved my life. And I would like other people to get to experience what I've got to experience through the program. I was homeless, hopeless. I wanted to die, really. Through the program, these people gave me hope. Every single one of these people care about you. The judge, Wes Barkley, our ADA, the probation officers, they all gave me hope. And that little bit of hope is all we need. So I think, not continuing this program would be a disservice to this community, because it not only helped me, but it saved many lives. And it'll save many lives moving forward. It's bridging the gap between justice and community. But that's about, any questions? Y'all have any questions about it?
Well, Chris, we're proud of you. Stuff like this moves me. I'm all about people recovering and being the best version of themselves. And congratulations, and thank God for the program. Be a real banner, be a real person that flags everybody else and leads everybody else, because we're going to need you.
Yeah.
So.
I do want to say that I do now currently work for the Burke County Recovery Court and the Catawba County Recovery Court. I was a graduate in 2023, September 2023. I've been in recovery for about 3 years now. And I'm very involved in the community and in the recovery process. And we need it. We need more programs like this. We can't do it all. We're not a one-stop shop, but it's definitely needed.
Thank you.
Other questions for Chris?
Chris, I just want to say thank you for being willing to come up and share your story.
Yeah.
And I assume your involvement involves some peer counseling?
Yes.
That you're doing now?
Yes.
All the research tells me that's a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
And my hat's off to you for doing that. And I'm going to come down and shake your hand, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm gonna come down too.
Chris, just one other question, and maybe this is not a fair question. It may be different for everybody, but what was the turning point for you, do you think?
You know, I got to a point where I thought that was all I knew for many years. I lost all support, and my family cut me off, you know, all these things. But when I came into the program, like, these people showed me compassion. They believed in me. You know, they gave me hope, and you know, they loved me till I could love myself. You know, my probation officer was first in line. You know, she believed in me. She encouraged me, and you know, they kept pushing me. They saw something in me I didn't see in myself. But you know, it's a hard program. You really got to buy into it. But I guess the turning point for me was, like, I'd always felt like I made the worst decisions. Like, every decision I made was a bad decision, you know? So it got to the point where, like, I was like, you know, they kept pushing me, and, you know, I was like, what do they see in me that I could, because I couldn't even look in the mirror and look, I didn't like who I saw. But, like, I have two beautiful daughters, and, you know, I'm able to be a part of their life today. I'm back in my family's life. You know, they love me, and like, looking at them and knowing that I wanted to break that cycle. I wanted to break that generational curse. And I couldn't pass up this opportunity, you know, so.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
I'd like to congratulate you too, and I see Judge Dan Keener sitting out there, and I've talked to him several times about this program, and he's a big cheerleader for it, and I respect him a lot, and I can tell you if he's for it, I am too.
Thank you.
All right, again, thank you for being with us today and
Yeah.
sharing your story with us. Okay.
I guess after Chris and Judge Keener, all I can do is screw it up. I'm Robert Mullinax, and in December of last year, Chief Justice Paul Newby of the North Carolina Supreme Court appointed me to be Chief District Court Judge here in Burke County, and I've had a lot of honors and privileges since then, but nothing more than to be able to stand here in front of this esteemed body and talk about a program that is very near and dear to my heart, the Burke County Recovery Court Program. At any given time, we have between 15 and 30 participants, and each of those participants, they start the absolute ground level. We call ground one, level one, and they proceed to graduation, which is a level 5, and that's a months-long process that includes group and individual therapy, regular drug screens, opportunities for job training, and assistance in receiving steady and suitable housing. I can tell you that since 2019, we've had hundreds of participants and a multitude of graduation sessions. And those graduation sessions are particularly emotional. You've had folks who have started out at level 1 as, I hate to say this, but just a wreck. And by the time they reach graduation, they've been clean and sober for a period of many months. And those folks go on to enroll in our local institutes of higher education. They embark on careers. They're family men and women. And they help mentor other participants and folks dealing with substance abuse issues outside of recovery court. The Burke County Recovery Court is a shining star in our local judicial system. And as a district court judge, I and my colleagues are proud to play a small part. I wanted to pass along an invitation from our presiding Judge Wesley Barkley. He would welcome any and all of you to a recovery court session. Recovery court takes place on alternating Tuesdays in the courtroom in the annex building of the Burke County Courthouse. I don't have to tell anyone in this room the impact addiction has on the fine folks in Burke County. And every success that we have is one less person breaking into our homes or businesses to feed an addiction, one less inmate we have to house, one less sick person we have to care for. In many cases, one less child or many children who are orphaned. We replace that burden with one more employee, one more father, one more mother, one more productive citizen. I thank you each for the opportunity to speak with you today and for your continued support of the Burke County Recovery Court Program. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Judge. Any questions for Judge Molinax?
So what, you said alternating Tuesdays, is that the first and third, or the second, fourth, or?
I should know that, but I don't, and I'll get you that answer. Yeah. But they're alternating Tuesdays, and I'll let you know. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Thank you again.
Judge Molinax, thank you for being here. Judge Keener, Scott, thank you all.
If I could just, I'll be brief. There's nothing really more to say other than from a financial standpoint, I want to make it clear that the judges, probation, the people that run recovery court, except for the providers, those are all, that's paid by the state. That's not part of the grant, because we just make it part of our program. I'm chairman of the management committee, but we don't get paid any extra, and none of this comes from grant money. We are starting a program over in Caldwell County, and very similar, and there'll probably be some trade-offs in the future where it'll help both counties, just like Catawba County. The money's being spent primarily for the cognitive connections or any other providers that might be hired at some point to help with the actual therapy. That's really where the money, and it makes the program work. Last thing I'll say is that judges, whether it's district court judge or superior court judge, we only have so many tools in the toolbox. We got prison, or we got probation, or we got some combination. And probation has limited tools. This gives one extra tool for us. I do wish the state would provide for it, because I think it's a state problem, a statewide problem. But the advantage of it being funded locally is you have more say in it about how that money's spent and how wisely it's spent. So there's kind of a trade-off there. But that's all I wanted to say. I thank you for it. I know you all are concerned. We all know people that have been affected by the drug problem. Chris, I want to thank you. And all the guys that, and men and women that come to court, it's kind of like it's an old Bob Dylan song that said, you got to serve somebody. You got to serve the Lord, or you got to serve the devil. And I tell a lot of the guys that come before me, I said, you're either going to be part of the solution, or you're going to be part of the problem. And you're part of the solution.
Absolutely.
And that's wonderful. So I congratulate you, and I thank all of you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you again.
And if I've got some things going on, if you don't mind, I'm going to step out.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Burns, tomorrow we'll have a session that starts around 1:30.
Thank you.
Do y'all have any other questions for me? If this remains on the consent agenda, it would be to approve or deny the resolution that's in front of you to extend that funding at your upcoming board meeting.
Any other questions for you this afternoon? All right, seeing here none, thank you. This item will remain on consent agenda, and I again, I think it's clear from the comments and questions from this board that we certainly, our hats are off to all of you guys for what you're doing, and Chris for coming today, and others. We appreciate very much what you're doing. Thank you. Item number 6 comes from finance, applications for public school building capital funds. This will come from Keith Lawson. Again, Keith, good to see you.
As is customary this time of year.
Correct. Here's the-
Keith, one more time there.
Okay, apologize. As is customary this time of year, we come before you to request a drawdown of North Carolina Education Lottery funds. And the intended purpose of those education lottery funds are to support school buildings in districts all across the state. So I request your consideration to draw down $899,828, which typically equates to 4/4 of education lottery funds. And we apply those funds to the debt service of Robert L. Patton and Jimmy C. Drawn High Schools.
All right, thank you, Keith. Any questions for Keith on this item?
Just have one. I was thinking from past years that 2025 was the year those pay off. Is that 26 or 25?
Next year.
Next year, okay.
Next year, yes, sir.
Other questions, comments? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on consent agenda. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Item number 7 comes from finance, ATM lease at Foothills Higher Education Center, presented by Matt Johnson. Afternoon, Matt, Deputy Finance Director.
Hey, guys, thank you very much. Yes, it's time to renew the lease for the ATM for the St. Louis Credit Union. They lease a small parcel of land, the Foothills Higher Education Center, on the Longhorn side of the Foothills Higher Education Center, and the lease will be a 3-year lease, and we will keep the monthly rent at $275 a month.
All right, any questions for Matt on this item? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on consent agenda. Thank you. Item number 8 comes from JCPC, approval of county plan for Burke County and funding allocation, be presented by AJ. I haven't seen AJ. Anybody else to cover that item?
I'm happy to speak to it. This is the annual appropriation from the state for juvenile crime prevention. We're including it, we received the notification, we're including it in the budget, but this would be the annual approval for the board to consider that funding level. And it is flat and consistent with prior years.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions from anybody on this item? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 9 from our Tourism Development Authority, financial update for the period ending March 31, 2025. Then that'll bring Mr. Phillips back to the stand.
Back to the stage. Thank you guys for having me this afternoon. So I want to talk for a minute just about the finances and to tell you some other great, fantastic news. But first of all, as of March 31st, total cash on hand for the Burke County TDA was $957,806.23. You can see the accounts payable, the other payables down through there that come out to $216,449.22 for an equity of $743,123.64. We are investing more of our money now into the capital management account, which generates more interest for us, and that's a great thing because in the past we've never had surplus to do that, but now we do. As far as our budget versus actual, which you also see that report on your right, we just recently did a budget amendment to bring our budget for this year up to $1.4 million. We have to do that based on revenue projections that are coming in, because part of our funds by statute are going to the city of Morganton and town of Valdez. And for us to not get an audit ding on our audit for overspending, we have to increase our budget based on projections. Now, why are our projections so high? Last year in 2024, we had a record year. We were in the middle of a record year for tourism in Burke County. And we were doing very well. And room demand and visitors in Burke County were quite large. And then September 27th hit. which brought us to a standstill, essentially, for a few days. And then when it came back, and since it has come back, hotel demand in Burke County has been off the charts. Room demand has exceeded supply, and occupancy tax that's been collected for that period since then, since September 27th, has exceeded all expectations of our budget or any planning. Today, revenue's still coming in strong. It is starting to tail off some. The revenue's coming from recovery workers and people who stayed here, even some of the people who were under FEMA housing vouchers staying in our hotels. But hotel room demand in Burke County still exceeds supply. During this period, MRI Hotel Group out of Charlotte has come in and is closing on property this week. And they have plans to build a Home 2 Suites near exit 105 off of Interstate 40. It's actually up behind Longhorn. And that property, they hope to start construction towards the end of this year. That'll be 91 rooms. Each room will have a kitchenette in it and is designed as a long stay. But a lot of people stay in it and utilize it just as a hotel, a normal hotel room as well. Just this past weekend in Burke County, we didn't have enough hotel rooms. We had destination weddings here at Hidden Hill Venue, at Brown Mountain Beach Resort. We also had over 100 participants in the Ukulele Festival. And these people came from all over the United States. And it was a really fun event to see these people come in the visitor center and talk to them and where they're from and ask them lots of great questions about Burke County and things to do here. We recently, the TDA recently participated in Merle Fest over in Wilkesboro. And we've done this 3 years in a row now. And the reason we go to Merle Fest, it brings visitors in to Western North Carolina from all over the world. And we have a booth there and we promote all the fun things to do in Burke County and come here and stay. And our music is popular here. And so we do that in April. We interacted with over 1,000 people there. And we have things that we hand out, little guitar picks, which I have in my pocket, but I'll bring you some at the regular meeting. And some little first aid kits and things that have our brand on it, Nature's Playground. And so right now, tourism is very strong. The question that we have before us and that every TDA in Western North Carolina has, when is this going to slow down as far as the recovery aspect? And nobody really knows. Some research is saying, if you look at the Katrina model of recovery and when the recovery work start there, it was 5 years when it started to trickle down and slow down. I don't think it's going to be that long here, but we still have people here staying in Burke County hotels that are doing recovery work in Buncombe, McDowell, Avery, Mitchell, and Yancey counties. Just this morning, we had an Army Corps of Engineers gentleman in our office here looking for maps. He's staying in Asheville right now, but part of his crew is staying in the Fairfield here and also in Lenoir because they're having to spread out because of hotel availability. So we don't know when that's going to slow down. It's a good thing for us right now. And so I'll take any questions about that. I'll try to answer. I do get a question about the Blue Ridge Parkway. Blue Ridge Parkway is severely damaged, and it's going to be several years before it's fully reopened. And I don't have any updated information from the Parkway other than they're putting things out for bid. They're having to go through the government procurement process, which is a long process. And also with the National Forest is the same. Although the National Forest and North Carolina State Parks have made a great deal of progress in getting back open. So.
All right, thank you. Ed, any questions for Ed on this side?
Ed, aren't there sections of the Parkway that are currently reopened in Burke County, or is it, I know you can't go through one end to the other, but do we have, like, for example, I know it's Mitchell County, but up around Little Switzerland, if that area is open?
It's not open. The only section that's really not in Burke County, but from the intersection of Highway 221 in Avery County, right near Grandfather Mountain, is open north of Blowing Rock, north. Although I was told in the Friday that they're planning to close that July through November to reconstruct and rebuild it because it is in terrible shape, and to repave it. But if you go south on the Blue Ridge Parkway, I don't believe there are any sections open except maybe just a little slice here and there at Little Switzerland, like to get to the Switzerland end or something. But all the way past Asheville, it's closed. Excuse me.
What about here locally, just on 105, or Wiseman's Views at in Limble Falls? Is that open all the way across?
It is. 105 is completely open. Forest Service is opening trails. Our website, discoverburkecounty.com, has a link to what's open and what's closed in the National Forest. It actually goes to a nonprofit in Old Fort called the G5 Trail Collective, and the Forest Service is using their website to update daily and show what's open and closed. But Old 105 is open. Linville Falls itself is not open. So don't go hiking to Linville Falls. The Linville Gorge is essentially open. Table Rock's open. Hawksbill, Short Off Mountain. All the trails on the west side of the gorge are mostly open. The Linville Gorge Trail itself at the bottom of the gorge, which is 12 miles long, goes from north to south, is not open. In fact, it's gone.
Can we ride a bike through there, James?
Yeah.
And South Mountain State Park is reopened, correct?
South Mountain State Park just reopened. The only trail, well, there's a couple trails there, some equestrian trails, and the loop trail above the waterfall is not open, but you can hike to the base of the waterfall.
Any word on the sports complex in Morganton? No?
That'd be a question for Morganton. I haven't.
What is it?
Yeah, the Catawba Meadows. Yeah. It's a total rebuild, is my understanding.
Other questions, comments?
Ed, I'd like to thank you and your staff for all you do for Burke County. The average person, taxpayer, doesn't realize how much money the TDA brings into Burke County and saves the average property owner quite a bit in taxes so we can maintain the level of services that we do, and I want to thank you for it.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Phil.
Other questions, comments? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 10 comes from Western Piedmont Community College, presentation of financial data for the period ending March 31, 2025. This will be presented this afternoon by Sandy Holman, Chief Financial Officer for the college. Afternoon, Sandy.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'll give a brief summary of our finances through March 31st, our third quarter. First, we'll look at the first three columns of our state funds. Our current budget is $20,088,857, and through March 31st, we've spent $13,729,530, or approximately 68.3%. The college received over $1.8 million in hurricane relief, primarily for emergency assistance for students and tuition assistance for spring 2025 as needed. The second set of columns in light blue is your county budget and actual expenditures. Our current budget is $3,060,382, and we have spent $2,195,251, or 71.7% of our budget through the year. Then the final three columns shows our institutional budget. We had budgeted $6,704,572 for our institutional funds, which again includes items such as student financial aid, grants, self-supporting courses, our bookstore, among other things. Much of these accounts are restricted in nature as to their designations on what we can spend them for. Student aid accounts for 48% of expenditures, with student support at 28%, with grants for success coaches and hurricane relief funding also running through institutional funds. The total combined college budget is $29,853,811, and we have expended approximately 79.5%, which is consistent with prior years with where we are with the budget. The next slide you'll see shows a breakdown of our expenditure for categories in our county expenditures. Our major expenditures include salaries and benefits at 30.2%, contracted services at 19.9%, and utilities at 20.4%, which is our major categories in our county funding. Just a few other things I want to mention. As mentioned at our last report, spring semester went very well considering Hurricane Helene at the end of September. But with funding that we received from the state, also our success coaches and folks at our college just reaching out to people, we did not see a decline. We actually saw an increase in spring semester. Our enrollment, our budgeted FTE going into next year is anticipated to be an increase of close to 6 or 8%. Again, we're waiting on estimates for our continuing education and basic skills to determine exactly what that increase will be. But this will be a greater increase than we've seen since COVID, so we're very excited about that and where the college is heading. Our Emergency Service Training Center is underway, expected completion May 2026. Footings were poured last week, so we do hope to see some vertical construction going up pretty soon. Anytime you want to take a look, please give us a call. We'll be glad to give you a tour of that, or anywhere on campus, as always. At our recent Piedmont Palooza, we had over 1,000 people on campus between our early morning 5K, the car show about mid-morning, and then capped it off with an open house that was very well received, I feel like. Again, just at this time of year, we're watching closely our state and federal budget. As you know, a lot of interest is in federal grants and possibly reduction of some of those that could affect us, but we are watching all of those very closely. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Sandy. Any questions for Sandy? All right, seeing here and none, this item will remain on consent agenda. Thanks, Sandy. Item number 11, tax collection report. This will be presented by Linda Wilbur. Afternoon, Linda.
Good afternoon. Property tax amount collected year-to-date, $53,891,554.38. Percent collected is 98%, 98.35%. Balance to collect is $901,624.62. Motor vehicle tax, $4,890,066.82. Percent collected 96.33. Balance to collect $186,177.18. Current year taxes, $58,731,621.20. Percent collected 98.18%. Balance to collect $1,087,801.80. Delinquent taxes, $510,445.17. Percent collected 72.92. Balance to collect $189,554.83. Penalty and interest amount collected $358,830.32. Percent collected 109.7%, which was a credit of $29,830.32. And then the regular tax levy, $55,175,134.43. Amount collected, $53,891,554.38. Percent collected, 97.67%. Balance to collect, $1,283,580.05.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Any questions for Linda on this item? Seeing none, this item will remain on consent agenda. This brings us to item 12, Tax Department Release Refund Report.
Okay. Report amount, $97,588.79. Rebuild amount, $809.99. Net release, $96,778.80. Refund amount, 0. VTS refunds over $100, or VTS adjustments, $137.94.
All right, thank you, Linda. Any question on this item? All right, seeing here none, this will remain on consent agenda. Linda, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Item number 6, items for decision. I have 3 items for decision. Board of Commissioners resolution opposing certain provisions of HB 675 due to adverse impacts on local fire departments, first responders. This will be presented by Commissioner Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there have been developments since I wrote this resolution and presented it for the board's consideration. On April the 29th, the bill was pulled from the House Rules Committee. But however, I would like to say North Carolina bills are often referred to committees for detailed review, and if a bill is pulled from a committee, it may be referred to another committee or brought directly to the floor for consideration. So I kind of want to poll the membership tonight if you want to go ahead and pass this resolution, or if we want to modify the resolution, because I have been told that certain provisions in this resolution are starting to show up in House Bill 763. the whole point of this is I want to make sure that we have a tremendous group of people in this county, in our volunteer fire departments and first responder units that go well above and beyond every day. And the way this bill, the provisions in this bill would require them by January the 1st, 2030, to register with the National Registry. And that's going to require additional training. It's going to require additional dollars. And I just think if we had the resolution pulled up there, the thing that probably strikes me more than anything is that if you could go down to the be it resolved that the board expresses its concern and opposition to the implementation of House Bill 675 as currently written without amendments to protect rural EMS systems and volunteer responders. That the board urges the North Carolina General Assembly to provide exemptions, alternative pathways, or grandfathering provisions for local fire-based EMS personnel in rural counties, and that the board request that state funding and technical support to offset the training and certification burdens imposed by House Bill 675, and that basically send a copy of this. So understanding that today the urgency is not quite there because it has been pulled from the Rules Committee. But like I said, certain provisions of this bill are, it could show up in another bill next week. It could show up on the floor in the budget bill. So I'm left at a little bit of a quandary other than to say that I want to make sure that we protect our volunteers in this county and make sure that we don't put undue burdens on them for the monumental task that they take on for us every day.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burns. Gentlemen, you've heard the information. Leave the item on as it is. I think that's my opinion. I don't see any harm in it. So any other feelings about that? All right, without objection, then this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 2, County Manager, presentation of recommended budget for fiscal year 25-26 and schedule of public hearing. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This item will be a placeholder for today. 2 weeks from today, staff will be prepared to present the recommended 25-26 operational budget, as well as ask the Board of Commissioners to consider scheduling a public hearing for your second meeting in June, as is required by statute. So this will just be your customary budget presentation, and the document will then go out following that presentation for public inspection for a period of 30 days. Happy to answer any questions you all may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Any discussion or question on this item? All right, we eagerly await that item. Item number 3, DSS, Adult Services Essential Services Funds, RFP. This will be presented by Brett Porter from our social work supervisor. Afternoon, Brett.
Thank you for meeting with us or allowing us to speak with you this evening. I want to talk with you about some essential services funds that were provided to the county through the state post-Hurricane Helene on September 28, 2024. Go ahead and go forward. I'm sorry. Yep, I got it. Sorry. The purpose of this is to discuss the purchase of a mobile home using adult essential service funds. Again, the state provided essential service funds to the 25 westernmost counties or most affected counties post-Hurricane Helene on September 28, 2024. Burke County was provided $131,444 for adult services use. With this funding, the county has already received the money. The money's in our coffers, which is unusual because usually we have to reimburse the state when we get funds like this. But the Adult Services has been encouraged to spend these funds by the state for any cases meeting the established criteria under any of 4 specific service codes that we have within adult services. I want to comment again that this type of funding is virtually unprecedented in adult services. We don't get funds like this in adult services. I love children. Child welfare is a huge part of DSS. They get, when there's money, child services typically gets that money. We just don't have funds like this available. So I just will continue to emphasize that. But for example, and to put that into perspective, post-COVID, Burke County Adult Services, we got $9,000. And it can only be used in one service code, which is one of the 4 that I'm getting ready to talk about here in just a moment. So the 4 service codes that are eligible for these funds include 202 cases, which is Adult Protective Services evaluation cases. When we get reports of adults who are alleged to be abused, neglected, or exploited, those are the cases that if it's screened in, we do an evaluation, either a 30 or 45 day evaluation to determine whether that adult is in fact being abused, neglected, or exploited, or was at the time of the report, and whether they're in need of protective services right now. So when we get to the end of the case, of the evaluation, if we decide or determine that they are in need of protective services, we can offer them services through what's called Code 204, and that's Adult Services Planning and Mobilization of Services. We can then help people apply for Medicaid. We can help people try to find housing. We can do those kind of things. Whereas when we're in 202, our hands are generally tied. We can't front load services. We can't provide services when an adult is in that 202 evaluation period. So those are the 2 adult services sides of things. I'll comment briefly on guardianship, which is 107. Those are cases in which the director of DSS has been named as a guardian for somebody. It's after a court hearing, the clerk of court makes a ruling and says this person is incompetent, they lack capacity, they need to have a guardian, somebody to make their decisions on their behalf to meet their basic needs. And then contracted guardianship under 111, those are for Burke County cases. We were fortunate enough that the board authorized us to have, we have contracted cases out to an organization called Hope for the Future out of Asheville. And that just takes some of the burden of managing those guardianship cases off of Burke County. So we have already used funds in all 4 of these service codes. What I want to point out is that the 204 is the one post-COVID, that was the single code that the state said we could use services on. And the reason they did that is that that's the one where you're providing services for somebody who you've already deemed to be abused, neglected, or exploited and in need of services. And that gives us opportunity to provide those services. Again, I still have that Bell's palsy. The funds can be used for any number of resources, but including housing supports, groceries, household supplies, home repairs, personal care, things like life alerts. We've provided folks with life alerts, clothing, personal hygiene, technology, non-medical transportation, utilities, and other. We've used funds already for all 4 service codes and for all of these things, I think, except for non-medical transportation. We just have not encountered a need for that. But we would, and we could. So that's where the background is of this money, and I just can't emphasize enough. I'm going to have one of my social workers here in just a moment, Tiffany Breeden, speak with you specifically about the case that we're asking for the funds for, because she's more familiar with it. But she's a new social worker, and I told her the day she started in September, or since September, I told her, you will never see this again unless there's another hurricane like this. It does not happen. We don't get funds. I think the county manager asked recently, what happens if we needed to get somebody clothing that's in guardianship now? We don't have funds for that. We would go to a church and ask them if they could donate some clothes. It's just, we don't get money in adult services. So this is unprecedented money and an unprecedented opportunity, in my opinion, for us to be able to, already helped a bunch of people, and we're going to continue to help folks. But for this particular case, I think this is a great opportunity. If it's all right, I'm going to turn this over to Tiffany Breeden to kind of talk specifically about Mr. Williams.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Breeden. I'm the social worker that was assigned to Mr. Williams's case. He is with us today, back here in the back. So currently, Mr. Williams is living in a towable camper that was provided through the VA by a private donor. This camper is running off of 3-pound propane tanks that cost $17 per tank. That is what goes to heat the camper, that is what goes to give him hot water. And then he is using an extension cord off of his own property for the electricity. This is because after the hurricane, his house was unlivable. He had a, I forgot what it was called. Sorry. There was a power surge after the power came back on that fried the electrical circuit in his home. He has a limited use of this camper, and he has to show that he is looking for sustainable housing in order to continue using it. He is the only veteran that left that the VA has provided these campers with that is still living in one. So we, did you skip that one? So, Mr. Williams is in Service Code 204. He is a 64-year-old veteran. He's lived in Burke County for 38 years. He is a partial amputee of his left foot. He's had about half of his foot cut off throughout multiple procedures. He was a veteran in the Air Force, and he has complex case management through the VA. And the VA has exhausted all of their housing options trying to assist him. So throughout his evaluation, we determined that he does need new appliances. The power surge short-circuited or fried all of his appliances in his home. He was on IV antibiotics that required refrigeration. His HVAC was also destroyed, and only a third of the home had power. So we needed to figure out how to get power back to the rest of his home so that he could get appliances and a running HVAC. All of those would not do anything until we had the structure repaired, because the structure was deteriorating to that level. We called in various Burke County contractors who told us that the exterior supportive walls of the home were sagging and deteriorating and no longer would support the structure of the home. So they believed that it was beyond repair. Some of the things that we have run into in trying to get Mr. Williams's home repaired was he was denied financial assistance by FEMA. I'm not sure why we've been unable to access his account. There was no homeowner's insurance. Like I said, the appliances couldn't be delivered until there was power restored and the structure was strong enough to support them. The power was only working in part of the home, and due to the fire hazards, couldn't be repaired until the structure was repaired. The same was said with the HVAC. They didn't want to repair it until the structure was strong enough to support new ductwork. And the contractors who went to evaluate the home stated that the exterior walls were decaying and the home was beyond reasonable repair. We've also ran into a problem with there being limited contractors available to do the work. Most of our contractors in the area are pushed out 6 to 8 months or more because of hail damage. These are pictures of the inside of Mr. Williams's home. This is the doorway going into his master bedroom where he would typically sleep.
And I'll just point out, so the door is on the floor for him to walk over, and then the second picture is the door removed, so you see what's underneath.
And then this is where his water heater is. It's kind of hard to see in my picture, but you can see the ground underneath his home, and the water heater is actually tilting, falling through the floor. When I had volunteers out there to clean out the home, they could not do that because it was considered a danger. And then that is the floor in the hallway that he has. There's various spots where he's tried to repair himself, but with limited mobility and limited funds, you know, and limited support, he can't do it by himself. And so his means of being able to repair it was being able to lay boards over top of it, because he's fallen through the floor in his home 4 different times at this point.
Including recently.
Yes.
So basically, what we are respectfully asking of the board, and again, understanding the unusualness of this request, but approval to use the essential service funds to replace his place of living, to allow him to remain at home independently, decrease the possibility of him becoming homeless, abused, neglected, or exploited. It's helping a veteran, it's helping a longtime resident of Burke County, and it's using funds that we already have that the state's saying spend, spend, spend in an unprecedented manner. So our concern is it has gotten bumped back the timeframe a little bit from where we were before. We thought we had to have this all spent by the end of last month. So that was kind of the sense of urgency originally on this, but we're still in the same situation, and we're just trying to utilize those funds to help somebody. And one of the things our quality control specialist that we interact with the state has said, and I know one of the questions may be, well, why this person, why this, why are we using, this much money? The storm did impact people differently. Some people needed a new remote control or a pair of jeans. We did that. Somebody else needed an HVAC. We did that. Somebody else needed to go to a hotel because the weather was freezing. We put them in a hotel. Through my folks, everything that's been asked to be approved has been approved. So we regularly monitor our wards, the folks that we're responsible for. We've talked to the company that monitors them. We said, what do they need? So we've utilized, or we've asked everybody and are aware of what the needs are of the folks we're interacting with, or that part of our responsibility is to know what those needs are. And so then we're addressing those as best we can and where we can. But this is just, again, a very unusual situation, but we respectfully ask the board to consider it. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
All right, thank you, Brett. So, gentlemen, you've heard the information. Any questions about this?
Mr. Chairman, I do apologize. I did miss one slide, and I think it is important to mention this. The original submission deadline was April 30th, 2025 at 2 p.m. We did only receive one bid, as I understand it, so they re-extended the deadline in accordance with the county's procurement procedures, and to encourage broader participation, the bidding period has been extended by 10 days, and the due deadline is May the 9th, 2025 at 2 p.m. So, my apologies, I just missed that one.
Okay. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, any questions for Brett on this item?
Mr. Williams, I'd like to thank you for your service, sir. Appreciate your service to the United States of America. And without getting too personal, is your disability service connected also, sir?
Is your disability service connected? No.
Other questions?
I just want to make sure I understand. I think I do. So you've really taken care of all the clients that you have, the wards as you called them. And so this is money that's still left. And so we're looking for a way to spend it wisely and help one of the folks.
That is in part correct. And what I'll say is we're still going to have some money left. And in fact, the state just gave us an extra $20,000 a couple weeks ago. So they haven't given us a firm deadline on when it needs to be spent, but the addition of that $20,000 with what we would have even left over, even after spending this, we're going to be able to help a bunch more people. The issue is that in each of these 4 service codes, people rotate through them at different times because you have to be in a 202 before you can be in a 204. Well, we're constantly getting 202 cases every day or regularly, and then some of those go to 204 and some don't. And some guardianship cases, some of our wards pass away, or they get reinstated, they get their rights back, or they get transferred to a different guardian for various reasons. So everything's kind of in flux, but we've helped and provided services for everybody that we can, that we're aware of. And again, with these additional funds that we know we're already getting, actually we've already gotten, we will still be able to help a bunch more people.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So to maybe state it a little bit differently, if we fail to expend these funds, they're going to go back to the state or back to somebody else, and
They will either, yes, sir. That's exactly right. They'll either be reallocated to another county, or they'll go back to the state, and then the state potentially could reallocate them, or just pull them back into the general fund, is my understanding. We don't get to keep them.
Right.
And I would expect that deadline to be soon, perhaps end of the fiscal year is the rumor that I hear. I don't have anything definitive.
Right. Other questions, comments on this item? Gentlemen, this item, given its nature and timeliness, I believe if we're all in agreement, we could move this item over to consent, if that is acceptable with the rest of the group. Anybody have a problem with moving this item to consent? Not hearing it again? Okay. All right. With that, this item will remain, but it will be moved to the consent agenda, okay? All right, item number 7.
Thank you to the board.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here and bringing this to our attention. Reports and comments. This will bring us to our DSS monthly operation report, and we'll recognize Corey Fisher-Wellman for his report today. Good afternoon, Corey.
And thank you guys for your support of Brett and his team. They've worked very hard on making sure that they were able to meet the needs of all the folks they work with. So just to run through our update, just the normal personnel that kind of tracks, our FTEs over time, as well as our part-time staff. Sorry, I'm trying to get my paper straight here. All right. So as of right now, we have 19 openings, which is about a 9.5% vacancy rate. If you look at on the right-hand column, you'll see several of those positions already have either at some point in the hiring process, whether that's a conditional offer or a final offer. So that would bring us down to about a 6.5% vacancy rate. Once those positions are full, for the month of March, we had just one separation and 5 hirings. So the number's going in the right direction, an addition of 4 instead of a subtraction, so that's a good thing. And just some information about our operational. You can see there the MOU measures in economic services. We continue to meet all those timeliness measures month over month. And just some other information about economic services. As of July 1st of this year, the final COVID waivers will finally come to an end, which would mean that child support cooperation would be required for Medicaid. Our low energy assistance program ended as of March 31st. You can see there the total amount of money we gave out just in Burke County in that program was just over $400,000. In addition, there's Brett was talking to you about the adult services, essential funds. There's also been some disaster funds and economic services. And so with the disaster energy program, we've been able to give out just over $200,000. And we've also been able to help a significant number of people with rental assistance during that same time period. Here's just a snapshot of our Medicaid numbers. You can see there at the bottom, this shows you month over month, and you can see the total numbers that we continue to serve, and then you can see in all those numbers in the green just mean that we're continuing to meet all of our timeliness in terms of processing those services. Same for food and nutrition. You can see there the total numbers, and that our team continues to do a good job of making sure all those applications get processed in a timely manner and people get their services. In terms of child welfare, this is just some data related to CPS reports. So for the month of March, we received 192 calls. You can kind of see how the calls are broken down. 29 of those were assists for other counties. 46 of those were screen outs. Several conflicts of interest, which means we're handling cases for other counties or cases we had to send to another county. But the total number of calls for the month of March was 192. In terms of our foster care numbers, April's kind of gotten off to I don't think strong is not the right word. Several children have entered foster care since the month of April began. We had 15 children entered. One of the reasons that number is higher is it's been a couple of larger sibling sets, which have caused the number to be higher. But we had 4 children exit care in the month of April, 2 through adoption, 1 through guardianship, and 1 through reunification. We currently have 190 children experiencing foster care in Burke County. Some updates on our adult services numbers. We currently have 59 wards, 17 contracted through the third party who provides contracted guardianship services for us. We have 51 special assistance in-home cases and 141 currently receiving the Community Alternatives Program. In terms of emerging issues, I have a couple slides, but one thing I wanted to bring to your attention because it kind of became, last week I had the privilege of attending the Directors Association annual meeting, and Kevin Leonard, your executive director, was joined us for part of that meeting. One of the things that came up was the continued instances of children having to spend the night in DSSs. I think the issue that was put forward is it continues to, it's a systems issue, and DSS and counties continue to carry sort of an unfair portion of that burden. There was actually a director last week who was convicted of criminal contempt for failing to pick up a kid from a PRT or from a replacement. And there's lots of issues, there's lots of aspects to that case, but the bottom line is she didn't pick that kid up because she didn't have a safe and appropriate place for that child to go, and that continues to be a problem across the state, continues to be a significant problem here, but I think what we are trying to put forth to your association is that I think there just needs to be continued conversation about all that responsibility can't fall on the county. We are not trained to house high needs children overnight. Our staff are not trained. It's not safe for kids and it's not safe for staff, but the system continues to create a situation where DSSs have to carry the burden of that responsibility. So that wasn't in the slide, but it came up last week, so I just want to make sure that I mentioned that. Just the last thing, last month was Social Work Appreciation Month, and you guys were gracious enough to pass an ordinance or recognizing that, so I appreciate that. But just social workers are important every day, so just wanted to kind of reiterate that we tried to go out of our way last month to make sure that we honor them for their efforts, and I think the reason I really put this in there is because I think it's just important to make sure that we remember the hard work that social workers do every day and every month, because it's really difficult work, and I appreciate every single day they show up to work. So happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
All right, thank you, Corey. Any questions for Corey on this report?
Yeah, may I just add something? A couple points that I think the data demonstrates, but I think it's also important for our board to know. Corey mentioned these young folks that so unfortunately often are older juveniles with behavioral health challenges and come from very traumatic backgrounds and often end up in our care. Just for perspective, much of that cost isn't reimbursed by the state, so not only is it a mandate for custody and child care, which we, like most counties in North Carolina, aren't equipped to do, it's also a 100% financial burden, so it's about $250,000 per year that our taxpayers are having to cover. So I think there's both the what's best for the child, which is obviously the most important, most critical, but there's also the economic side. And so as you all are talking to legislators and those type of things, I really believe that from a policy perspective, this is all created because many of these juvenile behavioral health facilities have been privatized so that they can refuse accepting the child. Unlike most hospitals, where if you go, they have to see you, regardless of your ability to pay or regardless of space. These facilities can say no, and I think that is the legislative component that could be repaired, that there are places that are safer for the children, that are better for their long-term needs, but for a variety of reasons, they refuse care, and that's how it ends up.
There's enough
at the
open
county
beds
level.
every single night to house every single kid that's asleep in a DSS building, but to Brian's point, these facilities are allowed to pick and choose. Even though Medicaid is an entitlement, these children in theory are entitled to this care, but places are able to say yes or no to whether or not to accept the child into the service.
Companies here locally with our kids?
Most of them are not local. It's a broad, the behavioral health system is very broad. There are some level 2, which would be therapeutic foster homes. Most of the kids who end up in our offices are very high needs, so like level 3 or level 4, which is the highest level of need. Those are not in our area.
But it is not unheard of for a teenager who may have significant medical needs, maybe nonverbal, maybe cognitive challenges, maybe violent tendencies and juvenile criminal convictions and so forth, to be with us for weeks. And that's a real challenge. That's a real challenge, again, for the child and for our community in general. So I thought I would just point that out again from a policy legislative advocacy perspective. I think that is the root cause of what's driving that. I also would like to point out that on the child welfare side of the house, we like many counties in North Carolina, have had a fairly significant uptick in reported abuse, incidents of abuse and neglect, and which has led to pretty substantial a backlog of cases. So over the last 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks, worked with Corey and his staff, and I see Ms. Chaslin back there, and we've been able to bring on some outside contractors from other counties that are licensed, seasoned social workers. We have about 10 of those folks that are helping us out right now in a pilot, kind of temporary time frame. That's taken about 50 cases off of our existing workload. So for the first time, maybe ever, our social workers are feeling a little bit of relief in their caseload. We should be somewhere 12 to 15 cases per social worker. We were closer to 30. So that's on the Child Protective Services side. What's key to keep in mind, as Corey was talking about, maybe an uptick on the foster care side. Many children that have an abuse or neglect case that gets screened in, as we work to close those and we really consolidate that backlog and we get more up to date, that's going to funnel more children into the foster care system. Because some of the investigations that our staff and these contractors do will result in children being taken into foster care. So it's a feeder. Child Protective Services is kind of a feeder into foster care. And as we know, we have an insufficient number of foster care folks. So on May 15th, 10 days from today at 2 o'clock, we're going to have our initial kickoff meeting. We're going to put together a coalition from the school system, from faith leaders, from the guardian ad litem, from our judicial folks, obviously social services, to try to come up with a more proactive, meaningful education recruitment partnership. Again, I'll call it a coalition for licensed foster parents in Burke County, and try to, at least for the children, if we see a swell in the number of children that are in our care, maybe there'll be a higher number and a more appropriate level of care in people's homes, because I think that that's a message that we all know isn't told often or well enough. And I just want to put that on the boards. There's a systematic approach to this. We first have to work the number of potential abuse and neglect cases. That likely will funnel into foster care. So we're going to try to work as diligently as we can, including working with media and other folks, to try to make sure that we can have a proficient number of placement opportunities for our social workers, and ultimately start to work some of these things down. And I think, I won't go off on the soapbox, but I think it's correlated with recovery court and people being able to retain their parental rights and on all those things over time. So hopeful and optimistic we can make a difference.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions for Corey on his report?
I got one, Mr. Williams. We all know that child abuse would involve physical, mental, and all that. And if somebody had a child that they were producing drugs or something in the home, that would be an unsafe place. Are there any other provisions on the operational side of the house for, like if a child was living in a home that was unsafe structurally or something like that? Does that constitute child abuse if you're putting your child under maybe a fire hazard or something like that?
So there's 3 ways a case can be screened in for abuse, neglect, or dependence. So an unsafe structure would likely be, neglect, but certainly that could be a reason why a child could be unsafe in your home. And there are, there are currently some disaster funds that we can use to help improve things structurally, but in regular times, there's often, people are left to their own, whether that's through, faith-based donations or other ways they can come up with the money to address those issues. We don't really typically have the resources to address a lot of major structural issues.
I was mainly referring to, would you go in and procure that child out of that home and take custody of it, or?
For sure. So, there are very few cases where we show up that day and your children come into care that day. That's usually very, very significant cases. That, there's a process that, as Brown was talking, where we start in CPS where we invest. There's a period of time of an investigation. There's also a portion of CPS called CPS in-home, which is more of a treatment base where we're trying to address some of those needs. So it is possible that over time, if a family wasn't able to correct the conditions that were leading to their child being unsafe, that child could enter care, but not, we rarely show up and just your kids enter care that moment.
Yes, sir, I understand. Thank you.
Sir.
Other questions? All right. Seeing here no other questions, we'll take a motion to accept this report as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Thank you, Corey. All right, this brings us to item number 8, other discussion items. I'll just remind you, gentlemen, if you've got reports for our regular meeting, please get those to the clerk as soon as you can. A few courtesy reminders, May the 6th. That's this week, NCACC District 13 meeting at 5:30 in Conover. May the 19th, special meeting if needed concerning the Marshallese order to vacate. And that's at 9 a.m. Again, that's an if needed. We'll be following up with you if that is the case. May the 19th, our regular meeting at 6 p.m. And I would remind youth groups that may be interested in coming and leading in our pledge to please come and help us with that at our regular meetings. This brings us to item number 9, action items. Discussion of the county manager, storm recovery measures, HMG resolution, North Carolina MOA adoption, and an update. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I wanted to take an opportunity and provide another update to the board on our disaster recovery process and all things Hurricane Helene here in Burke County. And then also, if it's appropriate and the board is willing to ask that we take action on one resolution. There was potentially 2 items. One of those items is not yet ready, and I'll explain more about that in just a moment. But there is a resolution that if that your rules will allow you to consider a pre-agenda today, although we typically don't take action. Trying to have our goal is to move that along as it relates to hazard mitigation block grants. Again, I'll explain more of that in just a moment. But for the folks in our community that have made application, trying to make sure that we can continue to provide some level of efficiency through that very complicated process. But I thought I would just start with more of a comprehensive update on the storm. Statewide, about 160,000 households have applied for and received individual assistance, totaling more than $436 million. All of this is according to our PDMG, our FEMA representative here in Burke County. You can see that waterway debris emissions have removed almost 3.5 million cubic yards, and the vast majority of that's been done by the Army Corps. $184 million has been paid by National Flood Insurance. Day 220 here in Burke County, these are Burke County numbers. We all know that we were very fortunate and really I believe that it was the advocacy of this board to state legislators to get a DRC, a Disaster Recovery Center here in Burke County, because originally we were not slated to get that. Ended up helping more than 3,500 of our citizens. Roughly $15 million has been administered through the individual assistance program as of the 28th of April, just a couple of days ago. That was to about 7,900 folks who were found eligible. So 7,980 folks were approved eligible out of almost 11,500 total individual applications, individual assistance applications, and currently less than 10 are still in temporary housing. So most of the vast majority of our Burke County citizens have, maybe they've been doing it through the temporary housing ordinance that you all passed and they're living on their property in some other structure, or maybe their home's been repaired, but they've found suitable housing outside of what FEMA would be providing. We've seen this and talked about it many times, but for right-of-way debris collection, Burke County elected to partner with a private contractor, SDR, for collection and Debris Tech for monitoring. We primarily operated with 3 debris sites. 2 are alternative locations, one on the fairgrounds. That has been completely closed out. If you drive by there, we were out there twice last week, and all of the debris has been removed, and there's still some effort going through you have to, per the contract and per the public assistance guidance, we have to return the property to the condition that it was in before it was used as a debris site. So there was some light fine grading where the material is being stored. Grass seed has been put down, straw obviously. The fence was repaired where the contractors had damaged that. There's still some, Mark Delahunt and I met an asphalt paving contractor out there last week, and all of this is being paid for by the contractor, no county dollars. But it is part of our responsibility to help ensure that that gets back to that pre-existing condition. And they have a track there for the Boxwood Derby cars that some heavy equipment got on and put some stress fractures in a couple of places. So we're waiting, helping get a quote for that repair. But following that, that site should be fully remediated and back as it was. The East Fleming is close. It's really close. We have a hard deadline of June to be off of that property. The vast majority of the bulk material has been reduced. There's still some mulch on the property, so there's going to have to be a little bit of cleanup there and sweeping. But the fact that it was an impervious surface really helped. You didn't deal with the ruts and the mud and sinkholes and all those other type things that we dealt with at the fairgrounds. Mars Trail continues to be our primary site. There's about 40,000 yards of vegetation out there that still has to be reduced. So literally there's massive stumps and a lot of the bigger stuff that wasn't grappled and picked up very quickly. They're reducing about 3,500 yards per day. So you're probably talking, another 15 days or so of just grinding. They grind it, they put it in the truck, they take it out of the debris site across our scale, pay our brush tipping fee, and then redeposit it in the landfill. So that's the cycle that we're doing all day long, 7 days a week. And that Marsh Trail site will be our final component of the right-of-way debris collection. In total, it's going to be approximately 325,000 cubic yards. We did that over roughly 220 days through today, averaging about 25 trucks. You're all aware back in late January, early February, we launched the right-of-way debris hotline. So we had a QR code for people to map their address or people to call in. That started at a tick over, it was right at 500. We had 481 were mapped, but there were another 30 or 40 that were also on the ledger. As of last week, all of those have been collected. So every address that was registered online or phoned in should be collected. There's some challenging spots where debris was called in that wasn't associated with an address. So, at least for the time being, if there is, proximities of those things, it's difficult to find when you don't have an exact location. And so we can still, to some extent, if we have general proximity, we can continue to go collect that material if we know where it's at. And we get good directions. But of the ones that were registered and recorded, all have been collected. We've also worked through all of our gated communities. As you all know, we had to have right of entry agreements with the HOA or the POA. We were able to collect and close out that component of our disaster recovery process. We've also worked through this tax value impairment. You all know that these informal appeal forms went out on January the 2nd. And we wanted to work through those as quickly as we could. It fairly closely monitored our preliminary damage assessment that we did as far as where we thought structures may be damaged. In total, there were 695 appeal forms received back by the deadline, and we are working through the final few this week and next week. We expect there'll be a handful, probably less than 10. 5 to 7 that actually go to the Board of E&R, meaning that our staff couldn't reach a negotiated settlement with the taxpayer on the appeal process, but the vast majority of these are closed out. And what we've seen is about $6 million of lowered value on the residential side and about $30 million of lowered value on the commercial side. Specifically looking at our application for public assistance, as we start to close out, this has grown considerably. The last update that I provided to this board was on March 3rd. And as of March 3rd, we were about $6.5 million. I don't expect these numbers to grow substantially more. But as of today, and our application is updated through the weekend, we're at about a tick over $11.6 million, with the vast majority being in Category A. A couple things to talk about that are still being managed real time. Waterway debris, on March the 3rd, at your pre-agenda meeting, we presented waterway debris collection in two options. At that time, it was continuing with a private contractor, a private collection firm, or requesting an admission from the United States Army Corps of Engineers. Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman, along with myself and our incident management team, met with a guy named Mark Caldwell on February the 10th in this room to talk about our options. And at that time, the board gave direction at your March 3rd meeting for the county to reach out. As we stand here today, there's really three options, and I'll try my best to do some explaining here. We haven't yet got to a final consensus or a final outcome. And again, I'll walk you through why that is. But we still have the option of private contract. We have a new option, option 2, of contracting with the North Carolina State Department of Emergency Management. And option 3 is proven to be a little bit more challenging, which is continuing to pursue engagement with the Army Corps. As a reminder, we did fly just the Catawba River, and for perspective of cost, the part of the Catawba we flew, drone pilot, we estimated it to be about $876,000 of cost in debris collection. We also think that however we move forward with waterway, that it also makes sense to use that same model for private property debris removal, because much of the access into the water comes through private property. And you know, that really can mean a lot of things, a lot of routes and structures and all types of other things that may be outside of the public right of way. The challenge that becomes, you have to identify what creates immediate threats to life, public health, and safety to make sure that that is reimbursed through the FEMA public assistance process. And I would say that that level of risk and exposure is one of the reasons that this board on March 3rd asked us to engage both Waterway and PPDR with the Army Corps. We submitted that request through the state web EOC, the State Emergency Management software, on the next day at 4:10 in the afternoon. And following that, without a tremendous amount of feedback or really any, we've had 3 additional times of written communication for the request. And then on April 15th, following really no feedback from any of those, we were able to meet with emergency management staff, Joe Stanton, the deputy director in charge of recovery, in my office, and he let us know that there was a potentially a new statewide project management program called NC SMART, where the State Department of Emergency Management would largely act in the project management role, that the county was still similar to the Army Corps, would have no legal risk, no project management exposure, or no financial risk, and that he advised that that would be more cost effective for the state, but also quicker and a better outcome for the county. He said that we would get a contract, which we did not long after he left. Been through 3 versions of that that didn't exactly say exactly what my understanding was that he was describing. Last Thursday and last Friday, after several other conversations with Mr. Stanton, he referred me to Will Polk, who is the State Emergency Management General Counsel. I'm not an attorney, but my question to Mr. Polk was, why is the challenge that we had with the versions 1, 2, and 3 that were submitted is that the county was inherently assuming risk and that we are a party to the agreement. And I explained to Mr. Polk, my understanding of the FEMA public assistance process was that there had to be an MOA between the state and the county, because they would be collecting the material in Burke County's jurisdiction, and they needed to make sure that they had FEMA documentation so the state could then seek reimbursement for the cost incurred in Burke County. So I've sent him, that is very similar to, for example, we did right-of-way, Burke County did right-of-way debris collection for all the municipalities. Conley Springs, Rutherford College, Glen Alpine, none of those municipalities had to do right-of-way debris collection because they fell under our umbrella, being MOA. So we're getting reimbursed in our public assistance application for material collected in their jurisdiction. And I felt that would be all that was needed in this case. He agreed after a pretty extensive conversation, and has told me that a whole new version of this agreement is coming that is going to model that, and that'll be what's offered to other counties in western North Carolina. I talked to him earlier today, and he said that he was reviewing the final version this morning, but something else came up, and that's the only reason that I didn't have it yet. So I had hoped to have something for you all to consider today so that we could expedite Waterway and PPDR, but as you can see, we're pushing as hard as we can and are hopeful that as quickly as we can get something in front of you to consider. The only other thing I'd like to provide an update on is hazard mitigation, which has moved along more swiftly. As a reminder, the state of North Carolina received about $1.5 billion from FEMA for hazard mitigation. And this really can fall into three types of programs for individual homeowners that live in the 1% floodplain, and this to prevent future and mitigate future flooding issues by providing elevation opportunities for people who live in a floodplain or acquisition. The state can also, at the market value of your home the day before the storm, can acquire your property. What's important to remember about the acquisition process is that once that acquisition happens, that deed is transferred to the county's name. We can lease it and use it for anything long-term other than putting a permanent structure on it. So in my mind, I think about it a lot like a public utility easement. As long as you can move it, it's okay. But it will come off the tax scrolls. That property will come off the tax scrolls in perpetuity moving forward. As of now, we've done an intake. We have 18 properties. We have 14 acquisition applications. We have 3 elevation applications, and we have 1 renovation application. The request today is going to be for this board to consider a resolution designating Chairman Britton and myself as signatories. So what's happening right now is each of these 18 property owners are working with the state to collect 17 data points, things like title searches, things like surveys, things like property valuations. There's 17 different components. Once the state has all of those data points for each of these properties, they'll submit the application to FEMA. Out of the 18, maybe all of them are approved, maybe half of them are approved. But the ones that are approved by FEMA will then come to the county for endorsement. And this resolution that is in front of you is acknowledging that both Chairman Britton and the manager are endorsed by the board to sign for those ones that may come back and be approved. That is my update. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have about the resolution or any of the disaster recovery process, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions for Mr. Epley on this item?
Mr. Chairman, Brian, do we have a final deadline from FEMA when all this process, waterway and private property, has to be complete?
Not that I'm aware of. The state has asked Director Ray, who's our state emergency management director. My understanding is he's asked for, and this was early on, so that this date may have changed, but I do recall a June 30th time frame for all debris collection to be completed. Now, the only deadlines that I know are formal were the 180 days issued only days after the storm, where it was 100% federal cost share. That expired on March 27th. And so that's the only deadline that I'm aware of that has been formal. We are into a level 1 disaster, so anything after the 27th of March now falls into a 90-10 split, with the federal government paying 90%. And the 10% can either be all state, or it can be all county, or it can be a 5-5 share. We've not been given guidance on what that is, which was another reason that I think this board in your fiduciary capacity advised to do something other than manage it locally. Because 5 or 10% of what that cost could be significant. I know that the PPDR contract for Buncombe County came back at $75,000 per parcel. Per parcel. That answer your question, sir?
Other questions from Brian? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion first to accept this report as presented.
Mr. Chairman, motion to accept the report as presented.
All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Burns. I'll accept the motion to adopt resolution number 202515.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adopt resolution number 2025-15.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. And then lastly, I entertain a motion to approve the North Carolina MOA and authorize the chairman to execute the final version of the agreement between North Carolina Emergency Management and Burke County to expedite debris removal assistance related to Tropical Storm Helene, subject to review and a revision by the county.
Not ready for that one.
We're not ready for that one yet. Well, what about the other item we were talking about? Is that part of this?
The hazard mitigation resolution is the resolution that authorizes you and I to sign those applications once they come back from FEMA. We thought we may have this MOA back from the general counsel, but they did not get it to us.
All right, so we're gonna move this item to
So,
regular meeting, or?
yes, with your permission, moving the MOA consideration, I suppose, to an item for decision for 2 weeks, and maybe we'll have it from them by then. That's okay, but we don't have the final version yet. It's just that we don't have it from the state.
Is there any impetus to deal with this any quicker? I mean, should we entertain a motion to give us okay if we get satisfied with that, or do we feel like?
Yeah, that's up to the board.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manager, now I understand that the Army Corps of Engineers are completely out of the picture now. We're gonna have to go with North Carolina Emergency Management. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's an answer that I'm not sure I can provide, because when you talk to different folks, you get different answers. I can tell you that we've requested in writing 4 times since March the 3rd, and have yet to have deployment. I have spoke to the Army Corps, and they've said no one's entered the queue. And now, since there's such a gap, that there may be a longer period of time to see that engagement. Meaning that there's other mission deployments in front of Burke County. But the state Department of Emergency Management is advocating that this NC SMART program replicates the Army Corps Project Management, and that is the MOA that we are waiting to see. So no one has said you may not engage with the Army Corps, but there's not been a mission assignment, and I do not have the authority to call them and do that.
Who does have the authority?
According to my best understanding, and our emergency management director sitting in the back, that has to go through the State Department of Emergency Management, which is an administrative role and process.
Have any other western North Carolina counties been denied by the Army Corps of Engineers over something like this?
So I don't think my understanding is that the Army Corps has denied anyone. I think that mission deployment is, we surveyed 16 counties in western North Carolina, and 5, I believe, I don't have it in front of me, I shared this with the board, I believe, but I think 5 were using a private contractor, I think 6 were using in the Army Corps, and I think 5 counties were similar to Burke, looking at this NC SMART program as maybe the most efficient alternative. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I guess what I'd like to get back to is the hazard mitigation and this group of folks that, are trying to meet their 17 items.
Yep.
Is this have control over that?
So the resolution that the board just passed is all we can do on that. That's ready to go.
And
That's good. As those folks have their applications come back from FEMA now, that will come to you and I to review and endorse, and then they'll be done.
This has nothing to do with that?
The MOA has nothing to do with it. The MOA is only PPDR and waterway.
Okay. All right, so I don't see the rush then to deal with that till our regular meeting. And hopefully we'll have a MOA that we can all see and agree to at that time. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll leave that alone. We'll hopefully have that on our regular agenda as a decision item. All right. That brings us to special item number 10, to adjourn. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, if I could share one thing before we adjourn.
Yes, sir.
So back on April the 16th, I started receiving a flurry of phone calls about House Bill 765. And I had a couple of friends that actually drove down to Raleigh for the committee meeting. And it seemed to have went really well for them. I think there was only 2 opposing votes. One was a Republican, one was a Democrat. I think our neighbor Jay Adams was the one that was speaking out against it. I did reach out to, on that day, Tara Davis, the president of our association. And since then, we've received a few emails from the County Commission Association requesting action. I did reach out to Kevin Leonard this week, and he sent me the examples of 2 resolutions that have been passed, one in Iredell County and one in the Albemarle Commission. I'd like for our staff to look at the possibility of looking at a resolution between now and our next meeting as it references House Bill 765. And basically, some of the key provisions are as follows: disqualifies commissioners from rezoning votes due to prior informal conversations or opinions. It mandates residential densities of 4 to 6 units per acre based solely on population without regard to local infrastructure or development plans. It also promotes the elimination of conditional zoning at the request of applicants, subjecting consistency statements to judicial review, increasing risk of costly litigation. It requires decisions on rezonings and site plans within 90 days, regardless of their complexity. And it imposes new legal liabilities, including punitive damages, on counties and individual commissioners, as well as municipalities and its individual council members.
That's pretty stiff.
So this provision not only strips away the tools we have to guide smart development, they also open the door to rush decisions and increased lawsuits. That's not good for Burke County, and I don't think it's good for North Carolina to try to come up with a one-size-fits-all for zoning and land use, my personal opinion. But I would like to ask if we could, I thought I was going to give that in our report section, but we didn't do it. So I appreciate your indulgence at the end.
Okay. Thank you. Everybody good with asking staff to review that bill and prepare something for us to consider at our regular meeting? Okay. Anything else to report on tonight before we adjourn? All right. Seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. All those in favor signify by uplifting the hand. 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Appreciate everybody's attendance today. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, good to see you, man. Like that, man. That's sharp. Appreciate it, man.